All right, next up is Brent Setchell with the Florida DOT. Brent graduated cum laude from University of Central Florida with a BS in civil engineering. Brent has been licensed in Florida as a professional engineer since 2005, joined the FDOT in 2009, and served as District 1 Environmental Permitting Engineer for 7 years. Since 2016, served as the DOT District 1 Drainage Design Engineer and has championed several innovative wildlife crossing projects, which selfishly I've been able to work on, which I'm pretty excited.
Awesome. All right, yeah, thank you for that. So yeah, Jason set kind of the stage for Florida and, you know, this need for connectivity. And so, you know, while we'd always like to do these, you know, giant, you know, wildlife crossings, unfortunately, we don't have the funds or the budget for that or the resources. And so I'm going to share with you one of the innovative products that we came up with to kind of, you know, put a little bit of resources behind it, and it turned out to be such a great project. So we call pile bridges. And so to kind of set the stage, if anybody's driven along Alligator Alley, which is runs east-west along the bottom of Florida there, it's 50 miles long just within Collier County, and it extends all the way over to the East Coast. And there's 36 existing wildlife crossings along that corridor. They were built. I don't know if you heard the keynote or one of the introductory speakers this morning, Chris. He mentioned about one of the first ICOETs was regarding these wildlife crossings on I-75 Alligator Alley. The western 9 miles did not have any wildlife fencing though, and so there had been 16 panther vehicle collisions. For those of you who don't know, the Florida panther is an endangered species. And there had been 30 black bear vehicle collisions along this 9-mile stretch of road. And so back in 2017, we got a request to add the 9 miles of wildlife fencing. So that's 18 miles. You have to do both sides of the road. And so significant undertaking. And so we decided on a 10-foot tall chain link fence that had the 3-strand barbed wire on top, which matched the fencing that extended out to the east for the other, you know, 30 plus miles that were out there. And so along with that, though, there were 2 existing bridges on the eastern end at the Miller Canal and the Fact Union Canal. And we were able to retrofit those bridges to add what we call shelves or benches. I know most of you are probably familiar with those, but we basically created these benches there. They existed, had like rubble riprap embankments there to protect the bridge, you know, from erosion or whatever, and just not very conducive to wildlife movement, especially for hoofed animals. So deer can't really move through there. And so the panthers are pretty agile; they could do it, and you know, bears and so forth might struggle a little bit, but they would eventually make it across. But we wanted to make it easier for them, to encourage them to use these existing crossings that were there, take advantage of the existing infrastructure. However, that left us with this western 7 miles. So basically, from the Naples toll booth there over to that Miller Canal, there was no bridges there. However, we did have 5 existing cross drains or box culverts that were there. And so we partnered with the FDOT Foundation to go ahead and monitor those existing culverts to see if anything was utilizing them. And so with that, just to give you a little zoom in of what it looks like out there, is you have the eastbound and westbound there, kind of in the yellow, the lanes there. And then there's one of the existing, it's an 8-foot wide by 4-foot tall box culvert. And then if anybody's driven along Alligator Alley, they have canals on both sides of the road. So the southern canal was one of the original canal that was built. They used that for dredge material for fill dirt on the original State Road 84. And then when it became I-75, again, they had the wider canal on the north side, and they dredged more material. So there's basically these canals that parallel I-75 along both sides the whole way through the whole corridor there. And so any wildlife that wanted to get to these existing cross drains has to cross both of those canals to get there. So we went ahead and monitored these in the, like I said, FDOT Foundation. Let me see if this will play it. So this is kind of it in June. So this is starting to get into the rainy season here. So you can see there's fish swimming in the canals, just enjoying themselves, kind of, you know, taking it easy there. And then as it dries out, this is in March, kind of our dry season, we've got an otter in there. He's snacking on a fish he caught. So he's just chilling in there using the ice. You can see the stain lines on the side of the culvert there, so you can see how high the water typically gets up to, but then it recedes out in the dry season. Of course, we have, you know, nice American alligator there utilizing during the dry season again. And so we're like, man, these are working pretty good during the dry season. So, and of course, we got the iconic Florida Panther as well. So then we knew we had it. You know, it was like, all right, they're utilizing these crossings. So what can we do to help incentivize them, to help them want to use these crossings even more? And you can see in the next slide here, is this bear obviously had to swim the canal. He was shaking off there, and it's like a Fabio shampoo commercial there. He's like, you know, there. So anyway, he's like, you know, hey, I had to swim this canal to get there, and you know, it's 78 degrees, so it's probably the weather was probably nice or whatever. But what can we do to again help incentivize this a little bit more? So again, we have these the two canals right adjacent to where the culvert's at. We wanted to add these pile bridges. And so we were inspired by, actually, it was a YouTube video out of Pennsylvania. Does anybody know Bob's Pennsylvania wildlife cameras? Yep, so here we go. So we saw that and we're like, hey, wait a minute, we just do a log across the creek or canal in this case, and wildlife should be able to utilize it, right? So we came up with these two different ones. So the first one was a timber pile bridge. And so that southerly canal was a lot narrower, so we could use basically just telephone poles. And we laid them across the canal and embedded them in concrete in either end so that they wouldn't roll around. And basically took 4 of them there, and you can see the you know, a telephone pole isn't uniform all the way across. It kind of it tapers as it goes down. So we kind of matched up a fat end and a skinny end there, and then, you know, again, embedded those in concrete in either end there, and that's what it looks like. And so you can see the culvert, how it lines up with the culvert there on the far side there. And so they can, wildlife can walk across there and get into the culvert that way. And then similarly on the north side, because the span length was much longer, we couldn't use the timber piles. And so we ended up having to use basically a concrete bridge pile that you normally drive vertically in the ground. Again, laid it horizontally across the canal, and then embedded it in concrete in either end, again, kind of the same thing. And we chose two 30-inch square concrete piles, which are typical bridge piles. You can get them in 24, 30s, but we wanted kind of something 5 foot wide or so for wildlife to utilize. And then again, this is what they look like. And so it's kind of hard to see, but in the bushes there, back there is the culvert there. It's opening to the culvert there. So they line up with these existing cross drains. And so there's 5 locations there. And so we already built 2 of them, which I'm going to show you. And the other 3 are under construction now. And actually there's a 6th one that's way out at the Herald Strand there, right on the east side there. And we did another one of the timber piles out there that it was an existing bridge that didn't have any connection across the canal there. And so this is what they look like on the aerial view from, this is from Google, that has, you can see the on the top side there, the concrete pile, and it's kind of hard to see on the bottom side there, the timber pile there. But here's actually from a drone shot of what it looks like there. So you can see the concrete pile, and then there's the timber piles there lined up with the crossing there. So, and then most importantly, did it get utilized? So let's take a look. So that's pretty fascinating. Daytime, see a you know, 300, 250 pound black bear, you know, walking across your structure. You're like, man, that makes your day right there. So that was a pretty exciting day. So there's a coyote here. And that is a Florida Panther utilizing the new bridge structure there. So we have found that they definitely prefer the timber piles. They're definitely like that a lot better. On the north side with I wanted to point out in the top right there, you see that we know this is a female panther, because you can see up here, you can see the eyeballs of the 2 kittens there, patiently waiting for their mom to kind of check things out there. So that was a cool shot that we got there for that one. So anyway, the ones on the north side, the concrete ones, we've made some retrofits and some future products to help. We think it's the texture of the concrete. They're a little bit nervous of that. And so we're going to make some improvements on some future ones as we go forward. So with that, I'll take any quick questions that you have, and then if not, we'll move along to the next. So that was like over 40 years since they've been collecting the data. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, it's been over a long time period. Yeah. Yep. Yep. So we're actually the other ones we're going to do, we're actually going to put like a little curbing on the sides, and then put sand on there, so they're actually walking on like a natural sand substrate. Yep. So yeah. Yep.
Are you going to share the detail, like you just share your wildlife thing?
Sure. Yeah, if you want. Yeah, give me your name and number again. I'll be glad to share it out with you. Sure, absolutely. Yep. All right. I think. Oh.
Sorry.
Yep.
What was the instigation for you to do this? For you to like go above and beyond to do something in wildlife? Right?
Yeah.
What was the like step that?
So again, just knowing that we had all those wildlife vehicle collisions there, we put the fencing up, but that doesn't improve the permeability. That just, that doesn't get them across the road. And so, we wanted to, again, make sure that we're not blocking wildlife off from there. Obviously, there's a lot more traffic on those roads than there were, 20 years ago. And so it's quite a barrier there. And just realizing that we had 7-mile stretch there with, essentially zero permeability, except for those culverts. And then, again, they have to swim the canals. And so we understand with these that they're only going to work in the dry season. The wet season, you saw the culverts fill up, and so the terrestrial wildlife aren't going to use them in, August and September and all that. But, if we can get, 6 months out of the year where the wildlife are able to utilize these, that's the goal. And again, the cost of these was, a fraction of the cost of doing a full-blown wildlife crossing, so. Oh, yes, sorry. Yeah. Good.
No, I was just going to, Brent, just to advocate for, when people indicate why are we doing this? Why are we doing the State Road 29? It's you, as Mr. Innovator in District 1, a lot of times it just takes that one individual who's passionate and advocates for doing the right thing within the DOT, and you really can make a big difference. And you've kind of taken that and championed that in your role, and so some things that aren't necessarily part of the project or cost effective are being looked at and implemented because of the passion you brought to the place. So,
appreciate that, Doug. Thank you. I'm not going to repeat that.
Well, and environmental protection is actually in your mission statement.
That is true. It's in FDOT's mission statement is to protect the quality of our environment. Yep. All right, we want to go to the next speaker. It's Katasha, right?
Yeah.
All right, Jason. Thank you.